Hi, I'm Louise. Today I'm going to be talking about Love Lies Bleeding. I had the opportunity to go see this at Sundance back in January. It was so fun. It was a late showing. It started at 9:30 p.m. It was packed, and I highly recommend seeing this in a packed theater. It's that kind of movie. It was so fun to hear everybody's reactions to everything. And because of that, I'm going to try and keep this as spoiler-free as possible because I think going in as blind as you can is also really important with this movie. I think it makes it more enjoyable. Love Lies Bleeding is about Lou, which I think is short for Louise, which made me really happy. And I think that's because of Thelma and Louise. Though, granted, I haven't seen Thelma and Louise. I should, because my name's in it, but I just haven't had a chance to see it. Anyway, but I could see, from what I know about Thelma and Louise, a lot of ties between the two. Kristen Stewart plays Lou, a lady who owns a gym. And there's a newcomer that comes into town named Jackie, who's a bodybuilder who wants to go compete in Las Vegas for a bodybuilding competition. And that's like the basic beginning of the story. And I don't want to get it too much into the details of the story here, but I will say this movie was so fun for me. I don't think it's for everyone. It can get very violent really quickly. It also, anyway, it's just intense. And if you're like, yeah, that doesn't look like it's for me, don't do it. It's not. It's definitely not for everybody. But it was for me, very much for me. It reminded me a lot of the 1996 film Fargo, which is easily one of my favorite movies of all time. It has that little bit of humor, but sometimes an intense violence that just kind of comes out of nowhere and feels to me more realistic than a lot of movies that have this kind of tone. I feel like Love Lies Bleeding sort of rides that line as well. Though I do think it is more intense than Fargo is and less funny. But it is still funny. There are parts that are pretty funny. And I can't wait to see what people think about them. And I think maybe that's why it's so similar to Fargo in my mind, because it does have those elements of brevity, but can turn very violent very quickly. And of course, another thing that was fun for me is it has lesbians. You know, the characters of Lou and Jackie get together, and that's really fun. And their love story is really what gets the story going and is what is at the center of everything. And so seeing their relationship develop and change as the movie goes on is really interesting. And they're not always making great decisions. Another maybe spoiler? No. I mean, I think it's pretty clear in the trailers even that they're doing stuff that may not be so good. And I feel like a lot of representation of especially any kind of queer representation is often sanitized, and the characters can't be also not great people, which is fine. But if that's all we're getting, it gets old. And so it's fun to have these characters that are queer, but also making terrible choices and maybe not so good people. Which is honestly more interesting for me to watch than, when they're just making all the great choices all the time. I did want to talk about the director, Rose Glass. I have not seen Saint Maud, which is her other big movie, because I'm not a big horror person, and though I did like this movie quite a bit, so I might have to go watch it, just because I loved her style. From the very beginning, you can tell that this movie has a unique soundscape. Anytime there's something unique like that, it's always fun. And sometimes directors will try and do stuff like this, and it doesn't fit. In this movie, it fits very much, and it instantly adds an element of intensity and almost stress that you can tell that this movie is going to be a little bit more on the intense side from the very beginning. And it's not through what it shows you, but through what you hear, which I think is kind of unique. And a lot of directors don't take advantage of that. And so I loved getting to see her set the tone and create this intense world. And then immediately I was like, okay, I buy this. I am in the world. Let's go. I'm so curious to see how the characters interact in this world. And so it makes me want to see more of her stuff. So we'll see if I end up watching more. And of course, I've always been a Kristen Stewart fan since her Twilight days. I'm definitely part of that group. And it was just fun to see her doing this. I love that over the past 10-ish years, it's been fun to see her filmography be so varied and see her succeed. Like seeing her in Spencer a few years ago, she was amazing, and that is so different from this role here. I feel like this is more just kind of, obviously she's acting, but like Kristen Stewart being Kristen Stewart, which is not bad, and I think she does that very well. It's fun to see her in this. I also thought Katie O'Brien, who plays the bodybuilder, was fun. I'd never seen her in anything, and so this was fun to see her, and she definitely looks the part, and I thought her character was the most interesting in the movie, and I want to see more of her. I guess she's going to be in the new Twisters sequel. I don't know how big of a part she has, but I am looking forward to seeing her in that and seeing her in other stuff. I also really loved Ed Harris in this. I mean, I love him in anything he's in. I don't think I've ever seen him in a weak role before. He always does a great job. And it was so fun to see him here kind of just play this weird character. He plays a lot of really intense characters, but it's fun to see him play an intense guy who also just happens to be also kind of strange as well. I think he does a great job, and he's a really intense presence in the movie, which this movie needed. I don't know. Not that the other characters aren't intense, but he is the most intense. Also, Dave Franco is in it, and I've been loving seeing what he's been doing. I really liked him in Day Shift, and then this, he was really kind of a terrible guy, but he played it so... Anyway, he was great in this. He played it really, really well. And I can't wait to see what he does next. I just feel like what he's been doing has been so, so fun. And then just in general, I think this is worth a watch if it seems interesting to you at all. I don't think I'd recommend it for everybody, but that's okay. I kind of like movies more when it's not something I'd recommend to everyone. I feel like they're taking more risks, and I think that really works in this case for me. I don't think it'll work for everybody, and that's okay. But if this movie interests you at all, I would highly recommend it. It gets a wide release on the 15th of March, and I'd recommend seeing it if it interests you at all. But don't say I didn't warn you, because it is kind of a lot. But yeah, I think it's worth watching if you like Kristen Stewart, if you like movies with lesbians in them. And if you like the 80s, I didn't even mention that it takes place in the 80s. It takes place in the 80s. That's why I'm wearing this. And that's kind of fun. And so the music is all from the 80s, and I think for the most part. Anyway, I had a great time with this movie, and I think it'd be worth watching if it sounds at all interesting to you. And thank you so much for watching. I had fun putting this together. I'm going to try and do more reviews, I think, in the future, because I like watching and talking about movies. I also have a Letterboxd now. If you want to follow me, I'll be updating that as I watch stuff. It's just cozy_Louise, and I'd love to see what you guys are watching. I appreciate you guys watching this video, and I'll see you soon. I don't know how to end these.